As we heard yesterday, standards provide a foundation for technological innovation, and they're the basis from which technology advances. Standards provide the baseline for what worked previously and the starting point for taking technology to the next step or level. Whether we are addressing weapon system sustainment or incorporating emerging and disruptive technologies into commercially available technology, we standardize to improve operational performance, reduce cost, taking into account form, fit, function, and users or market needs. While standardization of products and processes adapt over time, the purpose of standardization and standards remain unchanged. Today, we will hear from several leaders in standardization, from standards development organizations, industry, and DoD engineering, to kick off this second day of the 70th anniversary of the DSP conference. We will hear from Mr. Joe Bhatia, the President and CEO of American National Standards Institute, on maximizing the benefits of standards and standardization and the role they play in development and sustainment of technology and supporting innovation. Without further delay, Mr. Bhatia.
Thank you very much, Michael. Great to be with you. As you know, I had question marks leading up to this day, but here I am. Good morning, everyone. As we come together today on this momentous occasion to recognize the work of the Defense Standardization Program and the role of standards in advancing technology, I am really honored to deliver today's address. On behalf of ANSI's Board of Directors, leadership, and staff, I congratulate and thank DSPO for 70 years of success, innovation, and service to our nation. And welcome to everyone joining us today in person or online. ANSI has proudly coordinated the U.S. private sector-led voluntary standardization system for more than 100 years. We work in close cooperation with partners across industry, government, academia, to fuel innovation, to enhance competitiveness of U.S. globally, and to improve the U.S. quality of life. DSPO has been an essential contributor to that success. Beyond its decades of critical work strengthening standardization within the DoD, DSPO has been an active and effective partner, a supporter, and a participant in the private sector-led standards and conformity assessment community for many, many years. Now, as advanced and emerging technologies like AI, additive manufacturing, quantum computing, and autonomous systems become even more present in the military and civil applications around the world, the public-private partnership at the core of the standardization system in the US is more vital than ever before. After all, we don't just seek to keep pace with the rapid technology advancements, we aim to blaze the trail of innovation, and strong and effective standards fuel that innovation. Today, I would like to share a little background on the powerful partnership that we hold, highlight some standards activities helping to drive application of cutting-edge technologies, and provide a few insights on the overall standardization landscape today and how we can best leverage it in the future for tomorrow's. There's a long-standing recognition among the public and private sectors that standards are a building block for US innovation, for competitiveness, for security, for quality of life. This fact is firmly recognized in both the US law and policy, notably in the National Technology Transfer and Advancement Act and the OMB Circular A119, which I'm sure you're familiar with, as well as the recently updated United States Standard Strategy, which is now in its 5th edition, 20 plus years. With diversity, flexibility, and broad-based participation at its core, the US standardization system has the greatest power to respond to emerging needs and drive participation. Through our robust public-private partnership, we are able to harness the expertise of all the relevant US experts and stakeholders, and we can develop strong, globally relevant standards that respond to the market needs and fuel US innovation. So how, you may ask, do standards actually do that? Most of us clearly understand how standards can help organizations keep up with technology and use it effectively. But what's less understood is how standards actually enable innovation and the advancement of technology. I think it's most useful and most interesting, quite frankly, to look at the concrete examples. And ANSI's coordination activities known as standardization collaboratives provide some really good examples. These collaboratives are cross-sector groups convened by ANSI to advance specific emerging technologies and areas of national or global priority, generally with the public and private sector partners and a very, very broad stakeholder participation. We have hundreds of people, sometimes even close to 500, participating to decide what the solutions will be. One timely example is the ANSI's Electrical Vehicle Standards Panel, or EVSP. We all know that EV evolution is upon us, and gas prices have put the pedal to the metal on that particular market. But issues with availability, reliability, interoperability of charging infrastructure, of equipment, and the grid have actually hindered mass EV adoption in the US. Last year, in support of a clean energy future, the Department of Energy announced a funding opportunity to address challenges to the integration of EV charging, including coordinating standards and codes development to support rapid advances in vehicles and charging technologies. Now, these EVs at Scale Lab consortium that has been developed, which was formed in response, committed to the development of a standardization roadmap with ANSI's EVSP serving as the forum. Officially launched this June, this collaborative effort is prioritizing the identification of the most critical standards to support the EVs at scale, including those addressing high-power DC charging, storage, vehicle grid, integration, wireless charging, and vehicle-oriented systems. The resulting roadmap will not only support federal and state funding associated with deploying EV charging infrastructure nationwide, but it will also help establish a tested foundation of knowledge, which will further innovation as far as we can advance it. Now, here's another example. ANSI's Unmanned Aircraft Systems Standard Collaborative, which is named as UASSC in short. With support from the Federal Aviation Administration, this group convened experts from 250 cross-sector organizations to gather input on the standards and conformance programs needed to facilitate the safe integration of unmanned aircraft systems into our national airspace system. The UASSC developed a roadmap identifying standardization gaps, followed by a gaps progress report, which tracks the efforts of standards developers to address those gaps. Similarly, another example, the America Makes an ANSI Additive Manufacturing Standardization Collaborative, or AMSC, was launched in 2018 with DoD's support to help coordinate and maintain additive manufacturing standards developed by numerous entities. The resulting standardization roadmap and the GAPS progress reports are helping accelerate the growth of additive manufacturing industry in the US. Last year, in 2021, the global additive manufacturing market was valued at $13.84 billion and is expected to expand at a compound annual growth rate of more than 20% from now on through 2030. So it's a tremendous area of opportunity that touches nearly every industry sector. To clarify, ANSI's collaboratives do not develop standards. It's surprising for people to hear that, but that's the fact. Rather, they convene the experts and stakeholders needed to drive coordinated, responsive, and effective standardizations development activities. We have seen tremendous success with this approach for an array of priorities over the past 3 decades. Many of these activities began with the exploratory workshops and discussions on the current standardization landscape in the relevant fields. Only when a compelling need for greater coordination is identified and strongly supported by cross-sector stakeholders, does ANSI initiate an ongoing collaborative. So it's highly responsive model and one that we're very proud of. And hopefully there will be many more of these collaborations in the future. One more example that is highly relevant for particularly today's discussions, ANSI and the DoD are now partnering to find solutions related to global supply chain security for microelectronics. Just last week, we hosted a workshop to gather information on relevant standardization activities. A second workshop is already planned for October. Ultimately, our goal is to foster an ecosystem where trusted supply chain and operational security standards for producing microelectronic products and services are widely adopted by the US government agencies, by allies, by partners, and by commercial industry itself. I think it's a tremendous example of the flexibility and responsiveness of our system, where we seek out the right solutions to fit the specific needs. ANSI strongly believes and always has that developing solutions in a consensus-based environment in which all interested and effective parties can participate results in the strongest possible solution. If you'd like to get involved in this important ongoing effort, I will invite you to contact ANSI's Jim McCabe at jmccabe@ansi.org. I'm sure you can get that again from any of us. Flexibility. It has never been more vital to success than it is today, individually, organizationally, and as a nation. On top of the exponential speed of technology advancements and the diversity of its stakeholders, it's also increasingly converging across sectors. The ways in which we live and work are changing like we have never seen before. Keeping pace, the standardization landscape also is going through a tremendous evolution, both on a macro level, in the trends driving participation by various groups, and in the day-to-day of how standards are developed, distributed, and implemented. We have seen a remarkable increase in the number of standards activities and venues. Work to support critical and emerging technologies is taking place in formal consensus bodies, treaty organizations, consortia, fora, and the open standards places. I have been pleased to see the growing US government interest in standards and standards venues related to emerging technologies. This is evident in many areas and with many initiatives, including the collaborative activities I just mentioned. I would like to thank DSPO for their support of these efforts and for connecting ANSI with NATO Standardization Office, with whom we have been working for a while now to identify information on standards related to artificial intelligence and other critical tech areas. Internationally as well, we're seeing a larger number of global players, public and private, engaging actively in the standards processes. This is something that is typically positive. Increased participation in ISO and IEC international standards activities supports development of comprehensive and forward-thinking standards. Amid competition for technology-driven advantages, we are seeing a big push for globally accepted standards. And activities in critical areas like AI, IoT, quantum information science are driving conversations at the policy level now. Today, the US is one of the most active and influential members of ISO and IEC. We participate in more than 90% of IEC technical activity and nearly 80% of ISO technical activity, which is much more diverse and covers a lot of ground. ANSI is very proud to represent the US and be a leader in these venues at both the technical and at the policy levels, where we can assure that everyone has the opportunity to participate. The open, rule-based standard system that ANSI champions is vital to enabling an innovative environment that reflects the changing needs of the global marketplace. Some policymakers have expressed concerns that China ambitions to become a global leader in the standards indicate a desire by its government to subvert rules and norms in standards bodies to gain the dominance. The recent release of country's China Standards 2035 strategy outline increased those concerns. Critics worry that the plan will increase the influence of Chinese government over international standards for emerging technologies, threatening the independence of standards bodies from government influence. In order to evaluate the impact of the strategic outline, ANSI and all the US stakeholders will need to monitor its implementation going forward and continue to engage with China, which is our mission, to encourage responsible global standards participation. I repeat, responsible global standards participation. That's what we need to have a successful global solution. So we're not without concerns about some of the changes in the standardization landscape, but the changes are not all bad. In fact, they are mostly very good. ANSI has long been an active player on the world stage of standardization. And we're very proud of our focused leadership in standards activities that touch nearly every industry sector. It's not a matter of wanting to set standards ourselves. On the contrary, we want the standards that are set by consensus on a level playing field with open participation. Our leadership in international standards forums allows us to assure that these fundamentals are being met and that the integrity of the process is secured. Over the past decade, the volume of activities has grown dramatically, while the number of standards professionals has remained relatively flat. Our community may soon be facing an inflection point, as many active standards professionals are close to retirement. We need to make sure that we're developing the capacity of the next generation to participate actively and effectively in standards development. This is a priority shared by both the public and private sectors and the entire standardization community. And we talk to each other all the time, and this comes up in almost all the discussions. ANSI is continually working to attract underrepresented groups and participants as well, and bolster their capability to join the conversation. One example is our own launch of a pilot consumer participation fund with 6 foundation members and contributors: ASTM, IAPMO, NSF, the Toy Association, the UL, and of course, ANSI. The fund supports consumer engagement in standards development activities by reducing financial barriers to involvement. It is in the midst of a 12-month pilot period and is off to a great start. So we hope to continue this expand this supportive partnership. Please join in if you feel you have something to advance in this area, and I hope you do. On the international front, our new USNC Young and Emerging Professionals Program offers training and events to support the new US individual participating in the IC standardization and conformity activities. The program has already seen tremendous interest from early career participants attending our workshops and our networking events, and we have been encouraging them all along. We're also revitalizing our training offerings for standards participants at every level, supporting their effective participation in standards activities both in the US and abroad. We have worked with our members and partners to develop a directory of hundreds of educational resources for standards participants and with universities to update the directory of courses that integrate standards into curricula. A US workforce that understands the value of standards and conformance is critical to our long-term competitiveness. ANSI is excited to enhance and expand education and training initiatives as we look to prepare the next generation of professionals to carry out our work into the future. Excuse me. Honey and ginger. As the standardization landscape grows and changes, many standards developing organizations themselves are adopting new technologies to support their work and deliver speed and value. A global McKinsey survey indicates that companies have accelerated the digitalization of their customer and supply chain interactions by 3 to 4 years as a result of the pandemic. This underscores how critical machine reliable reading standards or smart standards are in today's world. This is the future. Indeed, the standards community is moving irreversibly towards greater digitalization and machine learning technologies. And ANSI is working very hard to support solutions that enable faster and more efficient standardization. We have hosted a series of meetings for our members to showcase and share insights on new solutions being implemented. We are also seeing greater use of cool technologies, as they say, in standards, like augmented reality applications, which add contextual digital information to a physical space, and artificial intelligence applications, which enhance users' understanding through contextual response to verbal questions. Amazing. No matter how individual SDOs use these new technologies, it is clear that the digital transformation is helping to grow participation in standards development also, increasing efficiency, speed time to market, and deliver innovative products to the end user. Overseas, ISO and IC are also exploring the application of machine learning technologies, seeking to create a framework for the development of smart standards. ANSI has been at the helm of ISO's efforts from the very beginning. Through our involvement on the ISO Technical Management Board Strategic Advisory Group on Machine Readable Standards. Boy, that's the biggest title I've ever seen. ISO Technical Management Board Strategic Advisory Group on Machine Readable Standards. So we've been doing it through this process. I have the privilege to serve on this select board, and in this role, I, among other recommendations, continuously encourage close communication and collaboration between ISO and IEC as being critical to our success. At ANSI, we are helping to facilitate this bridge wherever and whenever we can. George Gula, our Senior VP at ANSI, will present a more detailed report on smart standards in today's panel about creating standards for the 21st century right after I finish and the panel picks up. So there's a lot going on, as you can see, and we have all got our work cut out for us. There's so much change going on, but there are also more opportunities than ever before. The way to harness those opportunities is to work together, to bring the best of our expertise to the table and develop collaborative standardization solutions. ANSI is grateful to the DSPO for many years of partnership with us in furthering the reach of standards and conformance to support the health and safety of the American people and the strength and security of our nation. I look forward to our continued work ahead. And before my throat gives up, thank you for having me here today. And let me thank you for your time and for your attention. And if time permits, and if I have the voice, I'll be pleased to answer a couple of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any questions online or from the audience? Yes, Greg.
Good morning, Joe. Greg Saunders.
Hi, Greg.
How are you?
Nice to hear from you.
You and I have both lived through multiple editions of being very concerned about other nations and other regions having a more strategic outlook towards standardization than the U.S. has typically had. And we have struggled mightily to get standardization issues in front of the most senior U.S. government leaders. And I know that ANSI has done a lot in that area to help. Can you give some specific examples of where ANSI has worked with other SDOs or just ANSI itself to get in front of senior U.S. government leaders, and maybe also some specific examples of where the government has been supportive of long-term U.S. strategic standardization? Thanks.
I think, let me answer the last part of the question first. Has the government been supportive and engaged? And the answer is yes. We define our system as a system that is a public-private partnership, and we take that to the heart. We seek connectivity to the highest level people in the federal agencies. I personally go and talk to them if they're willing to talk to me, and that happens quite often. It happens at Department of Commerce, it happens at USTR, it happens at your organization from time to time with your help in the past for sure, and now with Michael's hopefully. We don't get all the way to the top, but we get to the decision makers which affect our activities and our standardization system. And that has become a mission for me ever since I joined ANSI, because I realized that the global solutions are what is being sought by not only by ourselves and by our industry, but by everybody, including federal government, including other governments to a certain degree, because it's a global world. People don't produce products to sell in one country or in one region. They produce them to be effectively used in multiple parts of the globe, if not all of it. And I think that will continue. There have been many examples of successes. One right here. I'm sitting here looking at Michael, and I have been introduced to senior people in DoD, and I've had similar successes, and so have many of our other people in our SDOs. Many of the organizations have regular contacts and deliberations with the people who are representing different industries and with people who are representing different federal agencies connected to those industries. And we are also working from time to time on the Hill to inform and educate in some ways some of the new initiatives that are being undertaken. So they become a thinking process for our lawmakers, and hopefully they'll be supporting the needs of the federal agencies that do need that help for getting the budgeting approved for their activities. So I think I have covered it in a general sense. And one of these days, we're going to have one of those lunches again, so we can talk about it for about 2-3 hours. Thank you.
Would you do that?
Looking forward to it. Sorry, that's a long answer.
No, thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you're feeling better this morning. You sound good, loud and clear. And I just want to thank ANSI for your leadership, the collaboratives that you mentioned, the workshops, including the microelectronics workshop that just was held last Wednesday through Friday. I look forward to the next one in October as just such a healthy environment with representatives from industry and standards development organizations and across government. And we just appreciate what ANSI can do to bring those groups together. And appreciate the challenge to not just keep pace, but blaze the trail.